Long time no see. It's been a while since I posted my last update on my projects and my work. So this is the latest, and in this video I want to focus on coloring and filling in your illustration with color. So to put things plainly, to get the colors, I simply would take a sample. I would use an image, and then I would put that image into my reference in Procreate, and then I would simply sample from that image. So for example, with the dirt, right, I could have easily tried to guesstimate and approximate coloring for the dirt, but instead I said, let me sample a real image of dirt. For the skin tones of the characters, I took their picture and I found, or what I look for is like the mid-tone or like the overall flesh tone or base tone of each person, and I would use that as my foundation. And then from there I just work either toward brightening or darkening to get the highlights and the shadows. So I structure my colors into three, or my color application into three. First is the base color, second is the shadows, and then third I add in the highlights. Another thing, the nature is another thing. I could have easily just try to guesstimate, okay, what's a sky blue? Or I could just take an actual image of a sky and sample that color. So I'm pretty sure at least 90% of this work is sampled, except for maybe the flowers in the background. I just, put my own bit of yellow. One thing that I was intentional about in this illustration was the yellows. And I intentionally kept the yellows the same tone and shade for the most part, because I wanted something that was going to unify the piece all together. So there you see me adding some text onto the books. I hand wrote some of the text, but once I learned how to type the text on the photo, I just said, you know what, let me just type it on there. Another thing that saved me a lot of time in this illustration, doesn't directly deal with color, but it deals with the line work, is just learning hotkeys and shortcuts on, for example, things like getting a straight line. Instead of me having to draw a straight line and redraw, maybe at least 3/4 way through, I learned how to actually get a straight line. So things like that will also help your illustration. But back to color, I do think I could have did a better job coloring and shading this in. But one obstacle I had was time, right? This took me 80 hours, believe it or not. I'm only showing the coloring portion of this. Part of the reason it took so long was, again, learning those hotkeys, just learning how to use Procreate in general, and also constructing it from scratch for the most part, because I essentially had to make an image and come up with the concept and then find something that ties it together. This was the third rendering of my ideas of a concept, and it finally worked out decently well overall. When I look at it, I see things I could have done better, but I also appreciate that it came out pretty good. So this is my first full-fledged illustration dealing with multiple characters, and I have to say, I'm proud of myself. It was a great learning experience, and let's see where the future takes me in my work. Thank you for watching.